My name is Stacey Carr. I am a member of the Pueblo of Laguna and also the Hopi tribe from Arizona. I've been making pottery for about 20 years now and have kind of focused more on a non-traditional clay, which is the red clay, as opposed to the gray clay, which is traditionally used here in Laguna. My ex-wife, her parents were potters. She would go out and do her things with her sisters and brothers, and I would basically stay at home with her mom and dad while they were making pottery, and so just kind of learned little bit by bit on how to make pottery. I would sit there and watch him basically all day make pottery, and he would throw me a little piece of clay here and there to to kind of shut me up, but started learning how to process the clay, how to build the pottery up. He gave me a couple of instruments which I still use, like an old spoon, a piece of a shell that I still use to make the pottery with. And so just gradually learning bit by bit on how to make pottery. When we first found the red clay, we took a piece to him, and he actually went through the process of grinding it and soaking it and kneading the clay out, and actually produced a small pottery. And so from there we started working with the red clay. The problem with starting out new in the process is you want everything to come out. You kind of get, you want your pottery to be done. You want them perfect. And so with the red clay, it's just not really a learning utility to get there. You want everything right away. And so we started working a lot more with the gray clay because, like I said, it's a lot easier to work with. Well, this is the gray clay, which is traditionally used in Laguna. The nice thing about the gray clay is that it's a lot easier to work with. It's very cohesive. It doesn't crack very readily. It's easy to mold. You can kind of bend it and twist it and do what you want to with it. And it's really a lot of fun to work with. The red clay, on the other hand, is not very cohesive. It tends to crack quite a bit. It takes a lot of time and patience to actually get the pot into the larger sizes. And so, the difference is that I really like the color that it produces. It's a dark maroon color. It's very vibrant, and I really like it as opposed to the gray clay. So, and it's you can basically get a book anywhere in Old Town and it'll show you how to do it. And so the nice thing is, and the harder part is actually learning how to do it, because I think once you start actually making it, a lot of people get turned off by the process because it is so tedious. There's a lot of work involved to get to the final product, and so that's why I don't think very many people actually do it anymore. And it's really dense and hard in its native form. But what we'll do is we'll take the red clay, we'll drop it in some water, usually boiling water, and it just completely dissolves out. Once it gets to that point, we'll skim the top water off, take it outside, let it air dry for a few days until it's completely dry. And then when we take that clay back inside, then we'll grind it up, run it through a sieve to get out any wood particles, any larger rocks, or anything that might crack the pottery. When we do that, then we have the fine powder clay. We get it to its completed form, we let it dry completely. I use a small bead of water in a soft stone and shine the pottery up. Once it gets to that point, then you can paint it. You apply paints. On the red clay pottery, it's generally black that we use just because it stands out quite a bit. Any kind of other natural oranges or browns really don't show up that vividly. And so you can kind of create your own design as far as what you want to represent on your pottery. With the red clay, if I fire it the old way in what they call a pit, the pottery tends to turn black, so it clouds out a lot of the design. So the red pots are primarily fired in a kiln. The white clay pottery is a little bit easier. The problem with the gray clay and it being so cohesive is that it does retain a lot of air, so you do find a lot of air pockets in there, and that's one of the biggest, that's probably the only problem with firing the pottery, whether it be in a kiln or outside, is those air pockets, because the air does expand and it will crack the pottery. The red clay seems to be a lot more breathable. I've never had a pottery pock from an air bubble that was made in the red clay, but the gray clay, I've had numerous pottery that have I have not taken out all the air bubbles, and so they therefore pop while you're firing. So. With Laguna pottery, what you see traditionally are larger patterns, a lot of color, not as fine detail work as you do with a lot of the Yakima pottery. Yakima pottery get very small designs, they're very, very detailed. But Laguna generally has broader patterns, more colors, and not very kind of simplistic designs with their pottery. To me, the beauty and in the pottery is the art itself. It's actually making the pottery. If you can, generate funds because of that, then that's fine. But for me, it's really the art of making the pottery. I think growing up on the reservation, you see pottery constantly, but to actually be able to know and understand the process and to make pottery is something completely different. So for me, I love the art. Going to the Indian market this year gave me an even greater appreciation of what it takes to be at that level, and to see people and the amount of work that goes into a pottery. And it's not about time, it's not about money, it's just about making sure that that art is the way that they want it, that it's produced to its to its finest quality that it can be, regardless of time or whether you're going to generate any money from it. That's secondary to the art itself. And so that's really what I enjoy most about the pottery. If I had to survive on this, I probably wouldn't do a very good job. But for me, I've been doing it so long. It's a hobby. It's relaxing. I enjoy the process. Going through, finding different plants, trying out different colors, different textures, different forms of pottery. It's just something that, it's constantly evolving and you're constantly growing with it. So to me, it's just about the art. That's really what I enjoy about it. From what I understand, it's a natural clay that's mined, but I can go to any art store and I can buy a 25-pound slab of it that's already processed for like $7, $8. And so instead of going through and getting the clay and processing it and sifting it and then kneading it, you just buy the block and you can make your pottery from there. And so they tell people that it's traditional clay, and which I guess it is, but it's not processed the way that it should be. And they sell it as being traditional pottery. And so that's, the big problem that I have with, if you're going to do something, at least be honest about it. Show, if you fire it in a kiln, then let people know that. If there's ceramic, then tell people. But a lot of people they don't know about pottery and what is, commercial and what is, real. And so they're just not educated about it. And so you can sell them whatever you want and say it's traditional. And that's really what I don't like about, people that do that. Just be upfront and honest about what you do. You can ask somebody, can I look at a ceramic pottery? And you can see the difference. There's a difference in the weight. The ceramic pottery is very, very, very white. And so with the natural clays, there's going to be a little bit of a tinge on it. It's not going to be completely white. You'll generally find a scar from the forming of the pottery in the ceramics on the bottom where it was actually poured. And so you can look for that. It just takes kind of looking at pottery constantly to where you can at least get an idea of what's real and what's not. And that's really the storyteller clay that they use has kind of a pink tinge on it. So you'll see a little bit of pink in the clay itself, and even after it's fired, it's got kind of a little like a soft pink hue about it. So that's another way you can tell. There's just hundreds of ways to cheat on the pottery, that you learn kind of along the way that people do. Simple things like you can make a traditional pottery, but you take a ceramic and you can use that, you can grind that into a powder, and you can use that as a slip in order to make the pottery really, really white, which is what a lot of people want. They want to see that white color. So it's a traditional clay pottery, but it's using ceramic means to make it look better. Ceramic paints are another thing. How to seal cracks using Coke. If a pot cracks when it's still wet and there's a slight fissure in it, you can put Coke in there because the sugars will melt when you fire it and it'll seal the pottery up. So there's a lot of little tricks that I've learned that people use, to make their pottery, work for them basically. For now, it's my little secret as far as where I actually get the clay. The different paints, I think the painting is probably the most important to people, and the different colors that they find. And that's because, the pinks are really rare, or blues. I've seen so many different colors of paint that people think are ceramic paints, but they're actually natural paints. And when you get those colors, you don't want to tell anybody else where to get them or how to process them, because that's kind of unique to your pottery. Maybe 3 or 4 days ago, but what you do is you take that and you boil it. Stick it in a big pot of water, all the leaves. You can use the stems if you want, but generally we'll just take the leaves and put it in a big pot of water and then just boil it for hours and hours. And what it'll do is it'll eventually, all the water will boil out and all the pigment from the plant turns into that, it's like a tar. And then you take that and then you add some water to it, and that's what produces the black paint. Southwestern art is really unique to the people here. You see pottery, you see basket making, you see woodworking, you see a lot of different forms, but it's specific to the individual tribe. Pottery is created in pretty much all the pueblos throughout New Mexico, but you can see different styles that have been utilized over the centuries, basically. And so people continue to evolve with their process. They get more creative. Some like the old style. Some are moving to more contemporary forms of pottery and their work. Art in general in the Southwest, I think in its purest form, is very beautiful. A lot of it is commercial now, where you're producing, you have to produce so many X amount of pottery or so many jewelry pieces or whatever you're looking at in order to make ends meet. And so I think in that it's kind of lost what it originally was there for. And a lot of these were there for utility, for storing water, for storing seeds, for food. They were there. They had a purpose, and it's gotten away from that quite a bit. But the basic principle is still there. It's about about the art. And so that's really what I enjoy about it, in making that. And so, the Southwestern art is just unique to where we are at. And it's a different culture that produces different pottery. And you're just not going to find really anything quite like it anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world.